Gun Violence Awareness Month, Survivor Series.
Yeah, my name is Aaron Jones.
So I understand you from the organization GMAC.
It's a fact.
Could you tell us a little bit about your position and exactly what do GMAC do?
Well, I'm a violence interrupter specialist at GMAC Incorporated. I've been doing that since the day one, since we cut the ribbon over there. And more so, I coordinate with a lot of the violence interrupters to strategize on how to minimize these conflicts, strategic stuff like that, things of that nature. Also document and get all the data, get it together, and before we move out and make these shooting responses and get out here and canvassing, community mobilizing. It's a lot going over there at the MAC.
Okay, so I want to get into a little bit deeper before we have this press conference right now. Now, we know that you're an official dude from the streets, and you know you're a credible messenger at the same time.
Yeah.
So, could you let the people know exactly your status and why did you make the change from the old lifestyle you used to live?
Well, more so, you know, I've been, you know, gang 23 years. You know, I was more or less really mischievous. I wasn't really that crazy, but you know, we was caught up in a life actually misguided. Got a lot of love out here in these streets, you know what I'm saying? You know, my position take care of a lot of homies. A lot of homies take care of me. So for me, it was just like to get into trouble. Then it started getting crazy, like no balance out here, like no morals out here. It used to be about each one teach. When it started getting crazy, it wasn't for me till I got to my 30s. I got in trouble. I caught a case, a bad one. I mean, a 10. And I was like, nah, I'm too old to be out here. You know what I mean, doing that craziness. And this was just an opportunity right here. So it was always in me as well. So, you know, why not? You know what I mean? Why not set the standard and show we could do other things? You know what I'm saying? I figure if Sledgy Beaker could be out here turning up and then just turning it all around, and you look at me and you know my past and you know what I've been through, then you could do that same thing.
So where you from?
I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn, you know that. But I'm really everywhere though, you know that. Everywhere.
Okay, so what message do you got for the youth who are actually out here engaged in gun violence in 2019? We're about to be in 2020 and things done change.
A lot of shit done changed, and I'm gonna just say this. I think we all need to just really sit down and think, I mean, what we really up against. I mean, do you really want to be here or do you really don't? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's all about you, you know, what you really want to do out here. You know what I mean? And stop trying to save face, you know what I'm saying? Like, some of your homies that you riding with might not even be really down for you. And next thing you know, they looking at 20, they gonna turn on you, you know what I mean? So you just gotta really be more in depth and know what's really going on before you give your life or something for a color, for a stupid cause you never even know about, or somebody, a story you heard and might have thought that's what it was, and then you just went off that. And I mean, so just think, actually think, and want to be here.
But we do know a few things. Their lives should not be the same after all this information has brought back to life. The racism and the intensity to not follow the facts, but to make the facts try and fit something that wasn't there because they were prosecuting people who they thought had no voice is disgusting. So we are asking for a few things. One, that Cy Vance agree to look at every case that Linda Fairstein and Elizabeth Lederer were a part of when they prosecuted, especially those cases where there was no DNA evidence. We're asking Cy Vance to immediately fire Elizabeth Lederer, who was still working for the Manhattan DA's office.
That's right.
We're asking Columbia to immediately fire Elizabeth Lederer, who teaches at Columbia.
That's right.
We are asking Penguin and other book agencies to immediately stop selling Linda Fairstein's book.
That's right.
You cannot go on and have a fruitful life after you destroyed 5 young people's youth as well as their family. All of them suffered for a crime they didn't commit. And I just got to shout out Corey Rise, who is a superhero, who has superhuman strength. I can't imagine how any human being can get through what he got through, still intact. And when you speak to him, I don't hear bitterness. I hear love in his voice. This is the ad by our president, Donald J. Trump. Almost $1 million he spent trying to kill people who were innocent.
Children.
Even when they got the release, these people said, well, they must have done something. And I got to be clear, the city of New York did not accept any liability at all when they gave that money. So these 5 people who were children have heard no one say, I'm sorry, no one accept that something happened and that something was wrong.
Okay, what are we doing here today?
Right now we're calling for all of the cases that the prosecutor, Linda Fairstein, who prosecuted the Central Park 5, be reopened and examined for prosecutorial misconduct.
So what do you, in terms of the Central Park 5, what do you see for their future in terms of like preventing other kids or other youth from this happening to?
Well, you would hope that after watching, and I want to say something. I don't see it as just a movie. I see it as them documenting, getting the chance to tell their story, because the story has been told about them for years. You know, you've heard the prosecutor paint a picture of them. You've seen people sit in courtrooms and paint pictures, and you heard our now president call them to be murdered and said that they were animals and these things. This was the opportunity for them to tell their story. And Ava DuVernay painted the picture according to the story that they was told. And I know it wasn't just a movie, because when I looked at that young man, Corey Wise, inside of that prison, I identified with those realities. I've either experienced or seen those exact realities. So this was someone documenting their reality. So the only thing we can ask for is that, based on what we've seen, what we know about this situation, that we prevent it. And that's what the first step that we're doing here is, trying to make sure that the wrong that's been done, the karma catch up back up to the person who done it. So as we do that, we hope that moving forward, that another thing, us as jurors are able to identify these things. We are able to identify that these prosecutors are painting pictures and false narratives, and they're lying on our young and black people, and be able to use our common sense, not go by what somebody tells you is supposed to happen. We have to use our common sense. When you look at this situation, one of the main things that sticks out to me is that these Central Park 5 boys were convicted with 5 different stories about 5 different people. The prosecutor says that she always acknowledged that there had to be a 6th person. But if you saying there was a 6th person, why did none of these other 5 people talk about this one man who actually did the rape? Why did none of them identify and say, no, there was one other guy who did all this. All of his DNA is at the crime. His DNA is the only one present. Why did none of the other 5 men ever identify him? If there was a 6th, just think about that. If they told on each other, they all made up a story about each other because they were coerced to do it. So why did none of these 5 people ever tell about the one person who actually did the crime, if they were even present during the crime?
So we are asking for a few things. One, that Cy Vance agree to look at every case that Linda Fairstein and Elizabeth Lederer were a part of when they prosecuted, especially those cases where there was no DNA evidence. We're asking Cy Vance to immediately fire Elizabeth Lederer, who was still working for the Manhattan DA's office.
That's right.
We're asking Columbia to immediately fire Elizabeth Lederer, who teaches at Columbia. That's right. We are asking Penguin and other book agencies to immediately stop selling Linda Fairstein's book. That's right. You cannot go on and have a fruitful life after you destroyed 5 young people's youth as well as their family. All of them suffered for a crime they didn't commit. And I just got to shout out Corey Rise, who is a superhero, who has superhuman strength. I can't imagine how any human being can get through what he got through, still intact. And when you speak to him, I don't hear bitterness. I hear love in his voice. This is the ad by our president, Donald J. Trump. Almost $1 million he spent trying to kill people who were innocent. Children. Even when they got the release, these people said, well, they must have done something. And I got to be clear, the city of New York did not accept any liability at all when they gave that money. So these 5 people who were children have heard no one say, I'm sorry, no one accept that something happened and that something was wrong.
Eric Garner's mother, Gwen Carr, and his family. It seems to us that everywhere black folks and brown folks are located across this country, there's hell. There's hell happening at the same time. And that we would have to be here for two different press conferences where the city of New York and the police department in New York City is responsible for either taking a life physically the way that they did with Eric Garner, or taking a life mentally, families being destroyed in the way that happened to the Central Park Five, and all of us who experienced this living here in New York City and people beyond. What I came to say is very, very simple. Very simple. And I want to make sure that we mention that also standing with us today is the widow of Ken Thompson, the district attorney of Brooklyn. Within months of Ken Thompson being in office, he exonerated over 20 people. He exonerated over 20 people.
My name is Monique Chandler Waterman. I'm a founder of East Flatbush Village Inc. We've been fighting against gun violence and also over policing. Now, I have something prepared to say, but I must say this. I have 4 children. And as I'm sitting here teary-eyed and emotional, I have a 16-year-old son. And my biggest fear when he leaves the house, even a little bit late for school, that he's going to be picked up by the police officers, not the gangs. I'm afraid of the over-policing. And that's a real feeling. And I live in East Flatbush. Now, these are people that are supposed to protect us. And we trust in them. But we need to hold them accountable. I am not afraid to speak out. I'm not going to wait till it gets to my doorstep to say I want to fight against these issues. I'm going to be out in front of it. No matter who has an issue with it, you cannot stifle my voice. I will not take endorsements or money for anybody that's going to hinder my voice. PBA, I'm okay. But what we need to do is hold people accountable. We need people to step down. You're not doing the right thing. I trusted people here, our elected officials, to make sure that we hold everyone accountable no matter what. And that's what I have to say today. Sorry, I went off script, but it's from the heart, from the emotion. I am a mother. I'm an advocate. I'm an activist. I'm a person. I'm a wife. Titles don't mean anything. I'm a child of God. And what we're going to do is justice needs to be served today. Thank you. Who are trying to keep police officers and community together rather than separated. And I am proud to stand with them, and we will not stop until we hear from Cy Vance and others in this city. And I have to say that we also hope that our Attorney General is paying attention. I know that she is. But Letitia James, my sister and freedom fighter, we need you to also encourage Cy Vance to look into these cases. Thank you very much.
Very honored and privileged to be standing here with folks that have been on the front lines of criminal justice reform, for standing up for black and brown communities here in the city. $41 million giving to 5 people, the exonerated 5, is not enough for the pain and trauma that we caused those 5 young men and their families. But as a leader in the women's rights movement, this is also a public safety issue. The narrative that is not being shared is that while the exonerated 5 were literally languishing in prisons here in New York City, Reyes, who was the perpetrator of the rape against the Central Park jogger, was running free.
That's right.
And during the time that he was free, he raped multiple women.
Yeah.
And not only did he rape multiple women, he killed Lourdes Gonzalez. There is a woman that died at his hand. So what I'm saying to folks here today is that we have a public safety issue against women. If there are innocent men languishing in our prisons, that means that there are rapists that are free, that are not keeping our community safe. Watching that series transformed my life. And we are people with platforms, and we have a responsibility to stand up to people who are not able to use their voices. If our campaign campaign, if our work, if our voices only cause us to find one more man, one more young man who is innocent, this will all be worth it. We already understand that we live in a country and in a city with a system that was not set up for black and brown people, and in particular for young black and brown men. And it is our responsibility to hold up a mirror every single day to the New York Police Department, to our district attorneys, to our mayor in this city who continues to have the power to fire Officer Daniel Pantaleo, who killed Eric Garner. We can't get even a simple task by a mayor who has the authority to fire a police officer who actually violated the rules of the police department. This city, we are in a moment where we are not afraid.
That's right.
We're ready for backlash. We're ready for the fight that is ahead. Because if that means another mother's going to get her son back, we as mothers are ready to do that. And we're ready to do that boldly and bravely, because that is what it means to be a true New Yorker. We are not afraid of those powers that be. And Tamika brought up something really important. A lot of people in New York City don't know that district attorneys are actually elected in their positions. People think they just got a job to be the district attorney. They get elected by the people of New York City to be the district attorneys of the 5 boroughs. Not only is Cy Vance up for his job again and needs to think about that and hear Tamika's words really clearly, but we also got a district attorney's race in Queens.
Yeah, that's
what kind of district attorney do you want in Queens? Do you want somebody that stands up for restorative justice? Someone who doesn't believe in death by incarceration, someone who believes in decarceration instead of mass incarceration that profits off the lives of black and brown people. That's the kind of district attorneys. To my fellow New Yorkers, June 25th, you got a chance to make a choice in the primary race on June 25th in the Queens District Attorney race, and send a message to district attorneys all over the country that we want people who are going to stand with our communities and we're going to give us a fair shot when we walk into that courtroom. It's what happened to the Central Park 5 is we already knew, and they knew what was going to happen to them by walking into those courtrooms, that the judge already made a decision, that the prosecutors have made a decision based on people's skin color, their socioeconomic status, the level of education of their parents or lack of. That's the kind of determination and factors we use to incarcerate black and brown people. We're here to say not on our watch, not on our generation, and we're ready to do what it takes to bring true justice to the John David trial. And just for insight, Elizabeth Lederer, one of the other prosecutors on the case, is still an active prosecutor in the Manhattan DA's office. She's also an adjunct professor at Columbia Law School. A woman like that should not have the honor of teaching law at an Ivy League school like Columbia. And because she's an adjunct professor, it means she ain't tenured. So Columbia has no problem, and should have no problem letting her go. And also for the record, people power. The students and alums at Vassar College calls for Linda Fairstein to resign as a board of trustees at Vassar College. She also resigned as a board member of Safe Horizons, which is the domestic violence intervention and prevention program. The lady knows she's guilty, and she's trying to give us little crumbs in hopes that we forget about her. Linda Fairstein, we don't forget you, we won't forget you, and you will pay for what you did to the John David trial. That's right.
Next we'll have Councilwoman Vanessa Gibson, Councilwoman
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out today. I am so proud to stand here with all of my colleagues in government, particularly our public advocate, Shimani Williams. And I also want to thank my sisters in the movement, Sister Tamika Mallory and Linda Sarsour, and everyone who is here, all of my colleagues. We are standing here to recognize the profound injustice that happened to our 5 brothers. But I also want to recognize that as we stand here and talk about the injustice in our criminal justice system, the systemic racism that continues to plague our black and brown communities, we also want to stand up and fight against victims of sexual assault and rape. The women who are impacted by rape and sexual assault, we want to talk about that as well. forms of violence. And before I start, I just want to ask everybody, all of my people of faith, earlier this afternoon, about an hour ago, there was a 7-year-old girl in the Bronx walking home from school who was grazed by a bullet.
Wow.
She's going to be okay, but thank God, this is Gun Violence Awareness Month, and our children are walking into these dangerous situations. I am torn up about it because I have a child at home, my niece, and that could have been her walking down the street, so I'm shaking today. But I'm thankful that she's okay and she's alive. But we are truly here to recognize, and I join with Public Advocate Williams and everyone standing here in calling on this District Attorney of Manhattan, who talks about being a progressive, but is so easily able to lock up black and brown young men and women of color. Let's call it what it is. I had a situation in my district, a young man who got trapped up in a suicidal situation, first time offense, and he was arrested in Manhattan. His bail was $50,000, and they charged him with a felony as a first time offender. It is inconceivable to even think about what our black and brown communities go through. And let's recognize that while the Central Park 5 and our brothers were exonerated, our work is not done, because there remains black and brown men and women locked up today. The only difference is their names. They're our brothers and they're our sisters, and we have to do everything possible to rid this system of people that engage in prosecutorial misconduct. You should not be able to collect a paycheck and teach at a college, teaching our students about work and world.
Okay, so June is Gun Violence Awareness Month, and I know it's a lot of initiatives that your office is actually working on.
Absolutely.
One of them is the Cure Violence Initiative.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, and what does that do in the community to actually prevent gun violence?
So our entire approach to producing safety in New York City is based on the belief that safety is co-produced. Civilians, residents, justice partners, agencies all have a role that they put forward that addresses a lot of issues in communities, a lot of issues in people's networks, a lot of issues in just overall cultural beliefs. And what we really do is look at how can we coordinate all of those efforts. How do we amplify and lift communities' voice? How do we empower individuals to create the changes that they want to see in their communities and equip them so that they could sustain that change? And how do we build networks of people that are empowered, engaged, and supported by government? So a lot of what we do is from the lens of less enforcement, less prosecution, and more community engagement and more empowerment. And when we have empowered communities that are equipped and resourced, that's where we see safety being produced. So when we talk about reducing gun violence, we're not necessarily going after the gun and or going after individuals with the belief that they want to be violent, but there's a myriad of factors that need to be addressed. And as we start to unpack those factors, we start to see healthy people. And as we have healthy people, we have healthy environments. And when we have healthy people and healthy environments, the culture becomes healthier. Therefore, healthier decisions are being made with healthier outcomes. So our approach to reducing gun violence is less about enforcement and less about prosecution.
The Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice works on various initiatives.
Yes.
Can you give me an idea, and the people an idea of what type of initiatives that you have, that can prevent future shootings and things like that?
Yeah, so we're the lead oversight of New York City's crisis management system, a network of over 60 community-based organizations that all have a specific and very targeted role around violence prevention in 22 communities that account for upwards of 50% of New York City's gun violence. So we have violence interrupters, outreach workers that are specifically on the ground in areas that often see shooting incidents or experience shooting incidents. We have programming, resources, workshops in Department of Corrections, in the Enhanced Secured Housing Unit. We have, and they also do a lot of post-release work as well with individuals, reintegration work. We have work in ACS, in the secured detention facilities, doing a lot of just support, behavior change, and really linking people to critical services upon return coming back to their communities. We're in schools, school conflict mediation, providing safe corridors. We ensure that individuals on the ground that experience trauma have access to therapeutic mental health services, professional mental health services. We work very closely with the Legal Aid Society, ensuring that there's representation for all of those that may encounter the justice system and or just need to know what their rights and options are. And we also have hospital response teams. With that, we also do a lot outside of the network that's contracted with the city, but to really engage and bring your everyday residents into the realm of being your everyday problem solver. So we have a Safe in the City grant where we issue grants upwards of $500 to $1,000 to individuals to co-produce public safety in their community from their lens and their eyes. We're really excited about Gun Violence Awareness Month, June, where we're rolling out our mobile trauma units, really having a critical and much needed response around reduction of trauma. We operate from the lens that people that are hurting are most likely to hurt someone else. So to bring grief counselors and culturally competent individuals to the scene of horrific acts and really provide a space for healing and ongoing engagement is key, and we're rolling that across the 5 boroughs. We're excited about the deployment of our anti-gun violence employment program, the city's only year-round employment program, which will be starting up at the end of June, early July. Where we identify, we work with the community to identify upwards of 400 young people, those that are most likely to be harmed and or harm another person, and we meet them where they're at and employ them and really build their skill sets, build their assets, provide a space for hope, a space for learning, and really foster and model what behavior change looks like from within the community. Our poster maker, huge piece, we're venturing into social media and really having more of an online presence. So we're doing a lot of social media work under the hashtag PeaceNYC. And we've launched our poster maker in conjunction with iHeartRadio. We're also doing a lot of sound blasts and messaging around promoting and creating healthy, vibrant spaces in those areas. So, we're doing a lot of great work, but the greatest work is really coming from your everyday New Yorkers. And our job really is to continue to convene and lift them up and really put the power in their hands.
Conferences, and it's really a hot topic that's going around the city right now in regards to the Central Park 5 case. Yeah. And they have been exonerated. Yeah. And, there's people who still believe that they're still, guilty. Mm-hmm. And also there's the issue of the prosecutor, mm-hmm. Linda Fierstein, mm-hmm. I believe that's her name. Can you give us your thoughts on regards to just the process, if you can, speak in terms of preventing incarceration or forced imprisonments and things like that, and what do you guys see for the future of policy of criminal justice?
The notion that justice is about punishment has to change, and really adopting the view that justice is about healing. And how do we heal individuals who have been harmed? How do we heal individuals who allegedly have harmed others? To create a space and a sense of healing is where we need to focus our attention. Oftentimes, society as a whole is quick to look at no possible redemption and how can we have the harshest penalty in response to different acts. Our approach is always about healing. And our role here inside a criminal justice office is to blow up what has been status quo and really move from policing and prosecution as answers and really put community forward as the problem solvers and the stewards of public safety. And our efforts are focused in that space. So in terms of, past occurrences that have happened that are unjust and corrupt and it just made up of a lot of hurt, there has to be a space for healing and reconciliation, and that has to happen. And that's what we would push to move towards. What that healing looks like is different for each individual involved, the agencies, the government actors, with all involved.
Do you believe there should be some form of accountability in regards to cases like this, that where people spend years in jail, that it's not just good enough to give them a check? Do you believe that the prosecutor in itself should be held accountable for what has taken place?
I believe accountability should happen across the board. What accountability looks like is what we have to get to. But yes, I do believe that everyone should be held accountable.
Today, I'd like to thank you for giving me the time, and consideration to do this interview. I know that you're a really busy person here at the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. Can you actually spell and state your name for the camera?
Sure. My name is Eric Garvin, EricGarvin.
Can you tell us a little bit about your job title and what you do here?
Sure. I'm a community coordinator for the Mayor's Office to Prevent Gun Violence. I coordinate for the boroughs of Queens and Staten Island. So my role as a community coordinator, I work with our crisis management system sites, different city agencies, nonprofits, community groups, just anyone and everyone that's focused around public safety, gun violence in particular, and trying to make sure that our groups are supported to do the work that they do in reducing shooting incidents throughout New York City. So that's a lot of meetings, that's going to shooting responses, sitting on hiring panels, making sure that we have good communication across city agencies. So if our groups are having trouble communicating or getting access somewhere, helping them out with those kinds of issues, and just being on deck to be supportive. So, if somebody just needs to talk, they can reach out. And at the same time, if they need something to get moved or they're trying to get something done in the city, we try to be as helpful as possible across the board.
Now, you mentioned shooting responses. A lot of people don't know what that is. Can you elaborate and let us know what that is? Yeah,
a shooting response is basically, it doesn't have to be a cure violence or a crisis management system group, but a lot of the times it is. It's a community group that goes out after a shooting incident takes place, and it's a gathering of concerned community members denouncing the act of violence and just saying that something here happened. We don't want to resolve problems like that in our communities, and just people coming together to show that there's a united front, to basically say that we care about our communities, we care about what happened, we don't want it to happen, and at the same time to try to connect people to resources. A lot of times at shooting responses, there could be family members there of the individual who was shot. There could be, clergy there can be politicians, and at the same time, it can just be people from that community that, frequent that area that are concerned about what happened. So it's kind of a place for people to come together and kind of put their thoughts, their minds, their expressions, and try to just show the community that it's not just another number. It's not something that we think is normal, that we should, view as normal. It's something that we think is an issue, and we're coming out to say that it happened and to say that we don't want it to happen. And like I said, to bring those resources out.
Now, we know that your office actually works on Rikers Island, works with, different prisons and different facilities and things like that. Mm-hmm. Can you give us a little bit of information on what your office does on Rikers and what's going on with the Close Rikers campaign?
Sure. Another individual, Dana Kaplan, she's actually the executive director. And what Dana and her team are working to do is basically not only reduce population on Rikers Island currently, but it's to build out smaller, safer, and fairer borough-based facilities. And one of the main reasons that they're trying to do that is because we've noticed that when you go to Rikers, if you don't live nearby, it's a decent commute for a lot of people. And then once you actually get on the island, there are a lot of different security protocols that just make visiting there very difficult, very expensive. And at the same time, we know that when people are in custody on Rikers, they do better when they have, healthy visitation from their families, that support from their communities at home. And we're trying to make it so that less people are on Rikers that don't need to be on Rikers in the first place. And at the same time, if you have to be in a facility, you can be close to people that are going to be supports once you come home. Because that's one thing that we do know is that most people that go to jail are going to come home. Some will be sent to state prison, but even there, you don't stay there forever. So it's this whole idea of not over-incarcerating, and that's the whole smaller, safer, fairer kind of mantra that we have at the office. And that's basically what we're working on, is reducing that population and then figuring out where we're going to have these new borough-based facilities that will hopefully have more resources built into them, so that when people, go to jail, that they can actually, do better once they come home.
So, I had a question asked to me from, a community member about Rikers Island. They thought that Rikers Island was being actually sold because of the real estate. What do you think about that?
There's a lot of speculation about what will happen to the island once it actually is closed. And I don't think that the projections right now are that it won't be fully, shut down until about 2025 or 2026. So that's beyond this administration. And it's really hard to say what will become of it. I think a few politicians in Queens have suggested different uses for it. I think somebody said that it should be like green energy, so like solar panels should be installed there. I've heard that, housing should be put up there. You kind of hear it all because it's just speculation at this point. So it's unclear what will happen to the island, but it's one of those things that's just up in the air at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So some people, basically, I have, a TV show, and it's called the Survivor Series. It's for Gun Violence Awareness Month. It'll actually be aired on Brick Art Media. Mm-hmm. And we've been seeing around the city a lot of different, press conferences in regards to the Central Park 5 case. Now, we know that's pertaining to forced imprisonment, incarceration and things like that. I like to say mass incarceration. That's one of the slogans that I actually use now, to wake people up and get the youth to understand that there is a bed for you at a prison near you if you do, break the law. So my thing is, can you give us some information in regards to the Central Park 5 case, your thoughts, and what is your office doing to prevent situations like that?
Well, it's a little bit difficult for me to speak on that, only because that would be more like legal initiatives. But I think one thing that our office is focused on is just making the justice system fairer in general. And so that's looking at how we prosecute cases, and that's looking at, who we're prosecuting and what the outcomes are. And so I just think that the main thing that we're trying to do is make sure that the whole system is accountable, that there's not just accountability for certain groups of people or certain populations, but for people across the board. And that also means that we're taking a closer look at the cases that come through New York City courts and making sure that our district attorneys are basically focusing on the kinds of cases that they should be focusing upon.
Okay, so I want to thank you for taking the time out to give me this interview. Is any last words that you would like to leave with the people?
Yeah, just, we're doing a lot, both in the community and in terms of Rikers, before people, come back to the community. One of the initiatives that we have that's really interesting is in the Enhanced Supervision Housing Unit in Rikers. It's called ESH. And it's basically a unit on Rikers that is almost like a jail within the jail. So you have a lot of people in there that are very influential, that can drive violence on the islands. And so that unit is meant to basically phase people out, meaning that they come in at a very high security risk level. And what we have is programming in that particular unit where our violence interrupters and our people from the crisis management system, Life Camp, GMAC, and GOSO, they go in and actually have programming with some of those young men that are in that very high security area and try to help them, make better decisions while they're locked up and just lead to less violence inside the facility. So that could be someone who's in custody assaulting someone else that's in custody. That could be somebody that's in custody assaulting a staff member, and just reducing those kinds of incidents so that they can have an easier time that they're at Rikers and at the same time eventually get processed out of that unit. So we're really excited about that programming, and we've got good support from DOC letting our community groups in to do that kind of work. And we've seen really good results in the first couple of years that we've done this pilot.
Well, thank you, Eric. And like I said, you're doing really great work in the community. Mm-hmm. And everything that you guys do actually counts because it reflects in the community. So I want to thank you for your interview and your time.
Well, thank you for your time, Chris. I appreciate you.
Thank you. PSA basically is about ending gun violence and also talking about the Neon Arts program that's actually going to be aired. We're looking at put this on Rick Art Media TV as well, and basically some of our other outlets. So we're spreading the message of social change. So you have an opportunity to say something, speak, certain things that may have affected you or someone else close to you, so you can get the word out there, right?
Belinda A. Dixon. My name is Janet G. Robinson.
Rob Gilmore.
My name is Half.
My name is Chris Foye.
Here for the Chris S. Owens Foundation, Staten Island Neon Arts.
Gun violence is a tragic thing. I grew up in Brooklyn. My teenage years were spent, from the mid-'80s to the early 90s, so I'm no stranger to gun violence.
I think gun violence is horrible, man. I think gun violence, it destroys our community, family, friends. been in an incident where I was shot twice.
I've had friends and family members whose lives have been snuffed out because people have a lack of conflict resolution.
The state of Staten Island on the whole, the North Shore, it's an epidemic.
What I think about gun violence? Well, I think gun violence is basically out of control in urban communities. I think gun violence is affecting everyone on a national level and also a global level.
I think the Neon Arts program can help with the gun violence, making them think instead of just going off half-cocked. Maybe it'll slow them down and make them consider their actions.
Chris Owens Foundation is something that I decided to do because I wanted to extend my son's legacy, and also I wanted to combat some of the things that I feel, in my opinion, wasn't addressed in my generation that passed on to the younger generation. Since then, I started the Chris Owens Foundation because I knew it was something that I had to do to change the mindset that actually killed my son.
We've been going out to Staten Island. We've been going out to Brooklyn and just teaching the kids in that area job transferable skills.
Skills that they can actually use to survive in the community, to actually build and grow their future, to grow a company, you know, just to take these skills and go off on their own and be an entrepreneur.
I came in as a teaching videography and audio and teaching artists, teaching music production and things of that sort.
Wishing that young people had more programs like this that they could get involved with. And I wish that the ministers and the teachers could channel the children to come to these events.
One of the ways that I'm reaching the youth in the community is actually running programs like we are doing now here in Staten Island with the Neon Arts. I think that, you know, having an alternative to gun violence is something that is needed in the community. I started the Chris Owens Foundation with the intentions of providing resources and support to families and survivors of gun violence. And I think using the arts is one way that can actually attract some of the at-risk and high-risk youth that's out here.
The youth, the ground and roots of the production and singing, video, and writing songs. So I think it's a good program.
And I think using the arts is one way that can actually attract some of the at-risk and high-risk youth that's out here committing some of these senseless crimes. And also, I just believe that using my skills as a director, a filmmaker, can actually help someone else.
That have intended to enjoy it, and they are gifted. You know, they know how to write music. So now they're just learning how to do it from the ground up.
The weeks it felt good going out and teaching these children's, you know, you may spark someone's interest, spark their skill where they don't even know they had it at one point.
In regards to me telling my story that can actually help stop the spread of gun violence.